girl, Melissa D. Welcome back to another week of the Activation Hour. Now, look, I know this is a little different, fam. Your girl had to come to you remotely from San Diego, California, but I wasn't going to miss this. Y'all know how I feel about this time of week. It's another Saturday, and I had to make sure that we bring you another amazing guest. And so I'm extremely thankful and honored to have Miss Franda Clay, the author of The Husband Journal. So welcome to the Activation Hour, Franda.
Thank you, Melissa. It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. This has been a long time coming. And Franda and I met actually at a documentary release event in like August or September last year, and had the privilege to learn more about her work actually while interviewing her on the red carpet about her book, The Husband Journal. As you can see, her beautiful banner. So I'm going to tell you about, yes, her amazing work in this beautiful native Atlantan. You don't meet many of those, but we have a native Atlantan.
I know, that's rare. That's so rare now.
Very rare, very rare. So, Franda, I'm so honored to have you. Thank you for being so flexible to join me remotely, as I couldn't see you in person, but I definitely feel your story deserves and needs to be told. So, family, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Franda. As I said, she resides in Atlanta, and she lives with her beautiful adult, well, she has a young adult daughter. I also just had the opportunity to meet her dog, Bagel. So she's a pet mom, too. I just love it. I love animals. Throughout her life, she's endured the loss of her mother at the age of 9, and then the unexpected loss of her husband at the age of 31, resulting in serious bouts of depression and anxiety. So that means that she knows a little bit about adversity, and we're going to touch on that just a little bit too, and the journey of writing her husband journal. Both of these experiences pressed her to begin writing about her feelings as a way to cope with loss. She says that writing is an outlet. When I put pen to paper, I can see my path more clearly. It's like a roadmap to the future, says Franda about writing. I absolutely love the fact that this woman of God stands on such a powerful scripture in Habakkuk 2:2-3. Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and engrave it plainly on clay tablets so that the one who reads it will run. For the vision is yet for the appointed future time, and it hurries towards the goal. It will not fail. Even though it delays, catch this part, wait patiently for it, because it will certainly not delay. Hence our topic today, while I'm waiting.
Yes.
Yes, love it. That's where I got the topic from, was when reading the scripture that you live by, Franda. So thank you for standing on that. Tell you a little bit more about Franda. She's also passionate about helping and inspiring others through her personal experiences. As she states, one of the quotes in her bio says, I believe God allows me to go through certain experiences in life so that I can create a story or give it a voice. And reading that, I know that she truly shares a passion that I equally have for helping others to activate their voice. And so I recently saw that you are launching a project as well to empower and help other authors and finding their voice and getting their work out there. We're going to share more about that as well. So again, family, I'm welcoming Miss Franda Clay to the Activation Hour. Awesome. Yes. I'm going to just jump right in there because I'm sure people are wondering, wow, what, okay, first of all, what is a husband journal? How do you come up with one? Do I need to be working on mine?
Possibly.
And so your testimony in your bio was very powerful, that you experienced some loss. And so I want to start off by talking about your own personal activation hour. What were the things that led you to this place of writing the husband journal and helping others in your season of waiting?
I would say part of the catalyst was a relationship that I was in, and I write about it in the book, and getting out of that relationship. As I talked to you before, we were on the phone and kind of prepping for this interview. It's a universal story. Men and women share this story alike, where you think that you found the one, and things start to happen in the relationship. You start to see
Mhm.
another side of that person. It's not who you thought they were. You know, we all, at first, I always like to say, you know, we meet that person's ambassador, and
Yeah.
then, or their representative. And
Mhm.
then later on, as the months or years go on, that person starts to unravel and you start to truly see who they are. So that's part of it. This person was someone that I knew from high school, and we dated, and then we reconnected after my husband passed. So that was part of the story as well, dealing with that loss, and a very sudden loss at a very young age. So just thinking, okay, well, God, you know, I feel like it's my time to date, to have a husband. My daughters were getting older. You know, I was like, okay, I don't want to end up by myself. And so really putting my all into this relationship and thinking, okay, no matter what, I'm going to make this work. And
Mhm.
truly of my own strength and willpower trying to make something work, that God kept telling me, this is not for you. This is not what I have for you. I have something much better for you. And you know, women, we try to, you know, I did
Yeah.
everything I could. I took it to the altar. I mean, I, you know, tried to seek counseling. I tried to do everything,
Wow.
and as I emphasized, in my power to make the
Mhm.
relationship work. And I remember the person saying to me at one point, "Why are you trying so hard to make this work? What if we're not meant to be together?"
Wow.
Yeah, he was like, "Do you think that you're actually forcing the relationship?" And I had to sit back and think for a minute, like, you know, maybe I am. Maybe I'm trying so hard to make something work that I'm not looking at the signs that are clearly visible at this point that we're not supposed to be together.
Wow.
So that was kind of like my activation hour, my moment of truth and reality. And then once we broke up, just the aftermath of that. So really trying to put the pieces back together, um, pulling in closely to God and realizing that He had someone so much better for me. And
Mhm.
that's kind of like where the husband journal piece came in. So he was like, start writing to him, just like you write to me, just like we have a conversation every day, have a conversation with your future husband every day. So I started writing, started journaling, and eventually, you know, when he and I do meet, those journals, and there's several of them now because it's been a couple of years, but those will be part of my wedding gift to him. The day that we get married, he'll get to read this whole experience. He'll get to see this journey.
Wow. Wow. I'm so like I am so touched by that on several levels. One, that one, the strength of you moving on from your loss
Mm-hmm.
and knowing and trusting that God would allow you to find love again. And so I'm sure everybody, male or female, can relate to some sort of loss. It may not be
Yeah.
a death or loss that you're mourning, but just the relationship period. We go through a mourning period when breaking up with someone because it impacts us greatly. And what you touched on, we all have been there too. When I call it missionary day, like I'm trying to pray my way through to make something work. It's like, well,
Yes.
because I prayed it, it just has to be so. And God
Yes.
is like, no, no, no. Like when we clear, like I was bargaining with God. Well, if you just make this person the one, if you
Mm-hmm.
just make this happen,
Yeah.
He's like, no, no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And wow, for your ex to say that very clearly, like, what if?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure that had to be a catalyst too. And you said it, like
Yeah.
it made you take a step back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just thinking about it now, and this just came to mind when you were saying that, like, to me, and my visual picture of what I had for my future husband, he was physically what I was looking for, um, and that's pretty much it. He wasn't financially what I was looking for. He wasn't
Hey.
emotionally what I was looking for. He wasn't spiritually what I was looking for. He just had the height and the skin tone. But outside of that, he was pretty shallow and didn't have a lot to bring to the table. And so, why would I? And this is something that one of the guys that sort of mentored me. You had him on a previous show, Patrick Phillips. He
Yes.
actually inspired me to write the book, and I worked with
Wow,
him. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
And so he was like, you need to tell your story because there are a lot of women out there with careers that are professionals that you would think, okay, well, you know, she wouldn't date this type of guy, or she would have higher standards, so to speak, or, you know, in what she's looking for. But you know the statistics with dating with males, the number of males versus females, and then especially African American, Black, the number of, you know, available
Yeah, all
men.
the
So
statistics. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
almost try to build a man, and God is still saying, no, this is not the one for you.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Well, I
Yeah,
appreciate that you're so open about the fact that, hey, you were in a place of vulnerability
yeah,
that birthed this thing. And that's the common thread I find is we're all usually at a place of loss. When I ask that question about your activation hour, it's when something's taken away, whether it
yeah,
be relationship or what have you. And in the process, hard part and while we're waiting is letting go,
yeah, yeah.
letting
That's
go
very
of
true.
what's not meant to be, because we've invested
Yeah,
so many feelings and so much thoughts. Like we've dreamed it up so much that to us it was reality, and it's like, no, you were never intended to have those feelings in the first place, and
right.
that's
And then
difficult.
I think part of the loss too is the loss of that hope. You know, because you put all of your hope and your dreams into that person, even if you know they're not the right one for you.
Yeah.
And some of it is like you lose some of. I mean, I guess it's kind of like an ego thing because our relationship was very public on social media, and so you know everybody kind of watched us as we dated and as we went
Mhm.
out and things like that. And so some of it is just like it's a blow to your ego to say, okay, we're no longer together, and you lose friends. I lost friends because of it, because we had a lot of mutual friends because we
Wow,
grew up,
in high school.
yeah, from high school. We knew each other since then, so we lost. There were ties that were severed, in those relationships. So it was like a lot. For some reason, this relationship in particular, there was a lot of loss. And I think I had to be at that place of brokenness to be able to birth this book.
Whoa, that's a loaded quote. That's a loaded statement.
Yeah.
Be at a place of brokenness to
Yes.
birth the book. Do
Yes.
you think that when you can pour out a purpose, I'm gonna call it a purpose project or your husband journal, what God told you to
Mm-hmm.
do, you think when it comes from for anybody, when when your book, when your story comes from a place of brokenness, is it a different level of authenticity? Like what's so special about it coming from your place of brokenness?
I think when it comes from that place of brokenness, there's a lot of transparency. And
Mm.
so you think about Mary J. Blige, her greatest songs. I mean, everybody agrees
That's
with
so
this.
true.
Her best songs were when, after she had gone through a tumultuous relationship. And it's horrible to say that that's her best music,
But
but
it's
because
true. She knows it.
it's
Shout
something
out
about that
to her.
place that
Yeah.
when you sing from your gut, when you sing from that angst, when you sing from, that you can hear it in her voice. Every
Yeah.
key, every note, you can feel. I mean, it just gives me chills speaking about it. And
Hmm.
so writing is kind of like, it has that same effect. When you write from that place of brokenness, it resonates with people because everyone has been there. Everyone has experienced that you just bottomed out feeling of hopelessness and despair. And so I think that's kind of like for the reading audience or the listening audience, what they gravitate towards, those emotional strings that they can feel and that are, pulling on their heartstrings.
So let's talk about when you and God came to that appointed place when He said, "I need you to write this journal,
Mm,
let this
yes.
collection of letters and thoughts to your husband." What talk about the process of that
Okay.
exactly, how it happens?
Actually, when it started, I was still in the relationship. So he and I had we would break up, get back together. It was just a very rocky
Mm-hmm.
relationship almost from the beginning. And so it was, I think, one of those times that we had, kind of broken up momentarily. And I was just, kind of going through my whole depression and trying to get over him. And God kept saying, just write, just write, just write. So I just kind of basically started writing in my personal journal. And then I had an empty journal sitting on my bookshelf. And so I just was thinking one day, I was like, I feel like maybe I should write to my future husband. And God kept saying, go ahead, write. Just, it doesn't have to be anything special, doesn't have to be anything specific. And so that's kind of like how it started. And it was actually on Valentine's Day, I think of 2015 is when I first wrote, it may be 2015 or 16, when I first wrote to my husband, my future husband. And the thing that kept, and I put it on the shelf for a while, he and I got back together. I didn't think much of it, but I just thought about the person that I'm writing to in this journal and the person that's here in my life, they don't match.
Wow.
The person that I'm describing in this husband journal does not match the person that I'm in a relationship with. And if this is going to be my future husband, he can't be my future husband because they're so polar opposite. So after the relationship ended is when I started to write more in the husband journal. And then a lot of the things that I wrote in my personal journal ended up being what is actually now in the book. And so that's kind of how those two sort of came together.
That, what I love about it, especially as it ties into our topic of while I'm waiting, God literally pulled that out of you while you were waiting on your husband and while you were trying to essentially wean yourself off of or just end another thing. So the way that he used your writing to reveal to you, I have more for you. And it changed your standard. By you writing that, it changed the standard. You start looking at what was doing and what you wanted. You're like, wait a minute, this don't add up.
There's no way I'm writing about him. Like, there's no.
No, that's so strategic. I always say that God is the ultimate strategist. He's like, it's almost like if I can get her to think of the standard, she'll raise the standard.
Yeah. And I think too, even though I just, like I was mentioning, those first few pages that I wrote, something in my mindset changed just by putting it on paper. And like you were saying, the standard changed. So more and more, the gap widened between what I wanted and what I knew God had for me and this person I was in a relationship with. And I think that's a key part and an important part to realize is that if you really hone in and focus on what God has for you, you'll be able to, decipher who's there for you and who's not very quickly and a lot easier than, we're just entertaining the first person that shows interest in us.
Wow. How has this impacted your life to release all of your thoughts? Not like you said, on paper to get it out, but now look at the beautiful work that's a result of it. How has that impacted you personally?
It's opened a lot of doors, a lot of opportunities. Men that I meet now, they're like, when I tell them that I wrote a book and I tell them the title, and they're like, oh, the husband journal, what is that about? And I give them a little, brief synopsis of what it's about. And I'm just like, read the book. If you feel like I'm someone that you're interested in, pick up a copy, read the book, see what I actually went through, and we'll go from there. And for some of them, it scares them away. And I've had a couple, that have read the book, and we've had a very, good intellectual conversation about it. But I just think more so than anything, actually, after writing the book, I haven't focused on a husband. I've been so busy doing other things, and that leads to the, while I'm waiting part of it, that I haven't really had time to just sit down and think about, when is my husband coming, or is he around the corner, or is this him, or is that him? Because I'm doing other things. So
that's big. I was talking to a good girlfriend about that just a couple of days ago as I was preparing to speak with you. And she actually asked me, she said, do you think a lot of women walking around looking at every man that walks by like, is that him? Is that him? Is that him? And the truth, I think more people, and I'm finding men feel the same, that there are truly, and it's, a lot of times we don't give credit to the fact that there are men who are really in search of a wife, like that their heart's desire is that. And so even those men or women in waiting are looking around like, is that him? Is that her? Like, so it's refreshing when you say, because you're in the work that you're supposed to be doing, it's not as much of angst or anxious anxiety about who's that? Is that? I mean, it's it could be consuming if you're not careful. So tell us what you hope that others take away from reading the Husband Journal, because you share what other men, suitors have said. But what's your hope and prayer in your heart for those who read your book?
Well, first, I would say, when you had your conversation with your girlfriend, I'll be the first to admit that I've been one of those people in every room I walk in. Is that him? Is that, really focused on, okay, brows frown, everything, like, where is he? Where is he, God? I have to be in the right place at the right time to meet him. And so kind of pulling back from that and just relaxing and saying, God has already taken care of it. He's already promised. And I know exactly what he said about my husband and the type of husband that I would have. So I don't have to be so aggressive in every environment that I'm in, aggressively looking and seeking and wondering. So that's one thing that I would like, or I hope that the reading audience takes away from it. And two, I wrote it for healing, because I know that a lot of people that read this book have gone through or are going through a breakup. Not necessarily a bad relationship, but just a breakup in general is tough.
It is.
So I hope that it provides healing and just kind of centering yourself and getting back to the place where you're whole, because you can't move on. You can't enter a new situation if you're not whole.
That's good. That's really good. And it's one thing about being whole, you find a new value in who God says you are. And it also means that you've dealt with your stuff. And so I think that's an excellent shift to my next question. You laughing because it's true. Being deliberate means telling yourself the truth about your stuff and about yourself, but not just saying the truth, but doing the work to repair those things, that you're not dating from a place of brokenness or loneliness or convenience. When I was at that place in my life, because I've dated from brokenness many years ago in my life, where it was almost like self-medicating, where this person became medicine. It's like, well, I don't want to deal with myself, so I'm just gonna, I don't want to focus on my stuff, so let me just focus on this person.
Yeah.
And
the saying that the quickest way to get over a man is with another man.
That part. No, that's the quickest way to pick up some unwanted baggage and demons and mess, because you haven't dealt with the old stuff. And it's not that that person was a bad person sometimes, but that one, they may not be for you, or two, it's dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Because you're not clear. And so when we talk about While I'm Waiting, and my point to that, you mentioned being whole. What are some things even you personally went through to be whole while you're waiting and writing the Husband Journal?
And a few of them, there are several different things. And actually, While I'm Waiting is going to be my next book, to just kind of talk about some of the things I've done to heal, because I think that's the next, that's the next step in the journey. So, I kind of borrowed that title when you mentioned it for the interview and everything. I was like, you know what?
I love it. Y'all heard it here first. The show topic has now become her next book. You have an Activation Hour exclusive. There you go. I love it.
I know.
Now you got to do it. It's on tape. It's recorded. Now you got to do it.
Right. I know. I was working on it earlier today, so I was like, "Hey, it's set."
Wow.
But, back to your question, it's just that I would say the number one thing I did was I kind of and in a sense withdrew from everything. Some of my friends, relationships, I had to really, and not necessarily to physically withdraw or go into hiding, but to be in that place where I can listen to and hear from God. So I spent a lot of time praying, a lot of time alone, a lot of time reading, and just really trying to get back to the core essence of my relationship with God. And I would say part of that had to be, and I know sometimes, this is a debatable topic, but abstinence, celibacy. Those are parts of your relationship with God that if you're trying to truly focus on healing and not being broken, you have to look at that area of your life and say that comes with dealing with hurt and the pain. That's and good. the cyclical, problems and issues that you've had in relationships, and bringing, issues from one relationship to the next, like all of that, you have to literally kind of shut that down and stop and take a moment and just, evaluate everything. So I think that was probably the biggest part of the healing process.
So some quiet time, maybe even, won't say isolation, but yeah, I will say isolation. I'm gonna take it in a minute. I'm gonna use that word and I'm gonna come back to why. I think it's very appropriate. Isolation. So essentially, when I say quiet time, I'm gonna call that rest. Isolation. And then just some reflection on, I guess, things as well. And applying a little pressure to the areas that need to be adjusted, because we talked about the brokenness.
Yeah.
And
in the book, I refer to that as being in God's workshop. So just kind of stripping away everything. Yeah. And going to his workshop and saying, Lord, I made a mess.
God. Wow. Brenda, that's such a beautiful imagery. That's that type of picture of being in God's workshop, because we are his handiwork. And you touched on something a moment ago too about abstinence and celibacy. And it is a tough topic for people. Some talk about it more openly than others. But I know even for me personally, the thing about that is it allows you to heal clearly. It's essentially there's a detox that happens where you can very clearly distinguish patterns of physical behavior, sexual behavior that lead to brokenness so that you don't repeat it. And to be transparent, because, and I love talking like this because it feels more like talking to a girlfriend here. Type of interview setting. But truly, another part of it is, for me as a woman, I wanted to feel like there was something special reserved, a pure place where I've done the work, and now I can present myself to my husband from a whole and pure place now. That is, and I just, you get to a place at a certain point in that journey of waiting and abstaining that it's like, well, I can't even imagine sex outside of marriage, because I desire my husband so much that anything less wouldn't even be satisfactory. It wouldn't even be pleasing, because I already know what his promises are of the covenant of marriage. So it's not so much about the lust of it all. It's the emotional, it's the promise that goes with it. And I think that's what makes the while I'm waiting, that's what makes the wait a little easier to bear for me. So do you touch on that topic within your book, The Husband Journal?
Yes, I do talk about it, because as I mentioned, that was part of me going in God's workshop. That was part of me healing. And, we've gone through situations where we've broken up, we get back together, break up, get back together. And a lot of times what pulls you back in is the sex. And then you start, okay, well, you start that pattern all over again of, making up, then things will be fine for a little while, and then it starts to slide back downhill, and, on and on and on. So just in and of itself, breaking that part off helps you create that distance that you need from that person. You no longer have that intimacy. You no longer are, dealing with each other in an intimate way. And God is able to kind of come in a little bit more and to fill that void, to feel that emptiness that you're feeling from missing that person.
Yeah, you're right. He desires to fill that void. Because what we're really talking about isn't so much lust of the flesh as it is a desire for intimacy.
Yes. And I mean the flesh, that part too, but we really, I know as a woman, we desire that intimacy, that closeness, that feeling of being loved and cared for. And, the kisses on the forehead, the kisses on the neck, just showing the affection. And so for me, that's the part where that's why I say I drew closer to God for that affection. And he showed it to me. He gave it to me in just ways that, you may think that, okay, well, nobody cares about me. And somebody will call and say, hey, you were just on my mind, or let me take you to lunch, or let me take you to dinner, and so that's God reaching out to you and saying, I'm still here. People still care about you. And even though you're going through this tough time, I'm right here.
Absolutely. So, and I love that you talked about that in terms of those that reach out. So we talked about the rest, being quiet, being still, but then the isolation. Let's hit on that for a second. And again, I strategically use those words about the rest, the ice, and kind of that compression or suppressing, because that has applied for me personally. And you even talk about some of the things in the book. But isolation, a lot of times people say, oh, you become a homebody, or girl, your man ain't gonna come to your doorstep. You need to get out this house. But I've heard it all. I'm sure you have.
Me too.
Elaborate more if you don't mind. You touched on a little bit, but can you elaborate a little bit more about what happened to you and what actually takes place in that space of isolation that leads you towards that, in that season of waiting?
For me, the isolation has been when I'm quiet, when I'm still, when I'm at home, I feel like I can hear God a lot more clearly. I feel like I can hear him in everything that I do, be it cooking, be it taking a nap, be it, sitting at my laptop, working. And so that's really like my creative space. And in my creative space, all the ideas and things that God is telling me to do and write, they just kind of flow. So when I was in isolation for this book, this is when I was actually writing the book. So after the relationship ended, I would just stay at home. This was, time where I didn't have to go to work every day. It was the summer, so I was teaching summer classes. So I had time, days where I didn't have to go in, and I could just stay at home and just write. And I know everybody doesn't have that convenience, but sometimes, just take a Saturday to just say, okay, I'm not going to watch TV. I'm just going to read. And if it's not the Bible, it could be just a motivational book or an inspirational book, or watch YouTube videos or something to just put you in that place where you're quiet, you're still, and you can just listen. Sometimes he says something, sometimes he says nothing, but I just think for me that peaceful environment of getting away from the chaos, and this person is saying this and this person is saying that, and he's dating somebody else, she's with somebody else, just stop. Yeah. I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to talk about it anymore. And during that isolation period, I also fasted, and I got off social media because I did not want to see his face. By that time, he had moved on to, really, it was his ex-girlfriend, but then they got back together, and that's a whole nother story. And so I didn't want to see that. I didn't even know that was going on. And the crazy part is, I was away from social media. I wasn't talking to any of our mutual friends. I wasn't speaking to his mother. All those people were cut off. But God already told me that he had gotten back together with the ex. God had already told me and put it in my spirit. So when I came out of that isolation and off of that fast, he immediately confirmed it, and I knew. And so I was a little bit hurt, but God had already told me and prepared me for what was to come. And he showed me a lot of other things during that fast and during that isolation period that as time went on, they manifested or I got confirmation of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's again amazing how what isolation does. What I captured in that, Franda, is isolation breaks ties.
Yes. 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 And in that fasting breaks ties. Because I went on, so
Yep.
far, that's the longest fast I've been on. It was a 30-day fast. And
Wow.
yeah, a 30-day fast. And it broke so many things off of me. And I mean, I would have moments, and I go in my closet sometimes and pray where I was just, on my hands and knees weeping and just asking God to remove this pain, remove all of these things, help me get to a place where I'm healthy and I'm whole, because I can't continue on like this. And so
Yeah.
that was that brokenness. That was that part where I just gave it all to him, because I knew, I was like, I can't continue to do this. This is not healthy. This is not sane.
That sometimes isolation, if people can mistake it as like us grieving, and that's okay. Like, you have to, there's stages of grieving in the waiting season. That's actually a part of the waiting, because you are literally weaning yourself off of the old.
Yes.
You are literally detoxing from the
Yes.
things that did not serve you and may have left a residue in your life, whether it be some emotional damage, mental effects, emotional effects. And you got to think, especially if you're well into your adulthood, that could mean years and years of things that you have to break ties with, that people who you know that you hadn't got over yet, decisions you made that you haven't made peace with. And so I love what you said, the combination of fast and prayer. It wasn't just one or the other, but there was a combination, and that's how the deliverance comes about. So how did you know? Did you look up one day and all of a sudden, people say, well, you get over it or whatever. Was there a day that you remember that you just looked up, Franda, and you were like, oh, I'm good? Like, you don't feel like, what I'm saying? That aha moment when you're like, wait, I ain't even thought about him today. Or, oh, I'm good. I ain't thinking about no husband today. I'm out here living my best life. Like, what was that like for you when you felt that life again?
I would say I can't even remember like a specific day or time that I felt that, but I was just thinking about that the other day, because I was working on some stuff in here in my office, and doing things with my daughter, and I was just like, I'm really enjoying where I am in life right now. It feels good to just be able to move about as I want to, and meet people, and go out and have opportunities and be able to take advantage of them. And it kind of, for some people, it may be just like a day where they're just like, oh, okay, I'm not sad anymore. I remember having that kind of aha moment after my husband passed. And it was just like one day I walked outside, and it's like the sky is blue. The sun is out. Like, I could actually feel the warmth of the sun on my skin again, because I'd been depressed and, grieving for so long, that it just kind of, one day I just felt like, okay, I feel better today. And so in a relationship, I think sometimes you may have that aha moment, and then sometimes it just may have to be gradual, where you start getting out more, where you start working out or going to church or doing whatever your normal routine is again, without breaking down crying, without missing that person, or looking in the seat next to you and feeling lonely, or passing by places that you used to go out to eat or hang out and reminiscing about them. And that's like the worst. That's
It is, when you just can't. It's like, even though they're not in your presence, you still reliving the old stuff. You can't even be in your present state. You're so busy living in the past. You have 2 young adult daughters, right?
Yes.
So
20 and 24.
Oh, wow. You don't at all, girl. You don't. But I wanna touch on how this journey, this rebirth of Franda, if you will, of releasing the book, going through the process, and your daughters have been there to witness it. How does this impact your daughters, and what's the impact you want to see on other young women?
So I kind of write about this in the book as well. Part of it was my embarrassment. There was a very low point in the relationship where he and I had been arguing throughout the day on the phone, and I was preparing to leave to go meet him to get some things of mine and, take some things of his to him, because we had officially broken up. And I just broke down crying. I remember I was about to walk out the house, and just the things that he was saying to me were so vile. I mean, I just can't imagine saying these things to another human being. And I stopped in my tracks, and I just fell on the floor and I cried. And my daughter came around the corner and she heard me crying. And at that moment, I was embarrassed. I felt like this is not the example that I want to set for my daughters. I don't want them to see a man completely destroy me, or any person for that matter, break me to the point where I am on the floor sobbing. Wow. In that moment, I also realized too that, hey, you have to pick yourself up from this. You have to show them that you can be better, that you deserve better than what this person is doing to you and how this person is treating you. And two, the other part of it is my older daughter, she's in a relationship, and showing her that, that's a good thing. You don't have to carry around baggage or shun men because you had a bad experience. Like, I tried to coach her in her relationship, not getting in their business, but just good advice that I would give, I would hope that someone would give me with being in a relationship and nurturing that relationship. So it's kind of twofold, not allowing someone to mistreat you, but also being in a place that's receptive enough to enjoy a relationship.
That's good. And I appreciate you sharing that as a mother of young women. Yeah. But also, what you share, it makes me think about something I often say with my own mom. As a woman with a mother, we oftentimes look at our mom like, that's the stress. She's Superwoman. That's my mom. But as you get older and grow into your own womanhood, you look back and like, wait, but my mom is also a woman. Yeah. And there are struggles, there's been pain, there's been lessons, because you start to have those same similar experiences as a young woman. Yes. Yes. And I think it's important for daughters to know the woman in the mother, and the mother understand how they're shaping the woman and the daughter.
Exactly. That could be a book. Wow.
Yeah, that you're right. It really could be, because that was a part of my waiting process. For me was, I'll never forget. Oh my gosh, this is so good. Now I want to know your thoughts on this. My 20s were really hard for me. And I made them hard. I made my 20s hard because I wanted so bad to be married. People know me. I'm a regimen person. Like, okay, I gotta have this by this time and this and that. And so in my mind, I'm supposed to have this ready-made family by, in my 20s. And I was angry with God. I was, and I struggled. I struggled in that season. And I just remember my mom saying it, because my mom, she was married to my father. And right after they married, they had me, and she was a mom at 21. So, here I am, well into my mid and late 20s. Now I'm in my, later 30s. And I remember just asking her, like, Mom, I don't know what to do. And as a mother, that's when she realized, like, wait, this is my daughter, but she's a woman, experienced something that she had never felt. She's like, I wish I could pour into you in this season, but I don't know what that's like, because my woman journey was different. Time I was your age, I was married, had a baby, got divorced, and was remarrying by the time I was your age. So this is very different. Seriously. So it's almost like we have to be willing to be a little transparent. And I talk about mothers and daughters, but just as women. And I'm sure, and what I'm learning too is men have these conversations more than we realize. Hey family, welcome back for the second half as we wrap up with author Franda Clay, the author of the book, The Husband Journal. And our conversation was just getting good, and we were hitting on just some real points of transparency and realness of what we hope to see people learn from her book, The Husband Journal, with our topic, While I'm Waiting, which, in case you didn't catch it, Franda made the exclusive announcement that the title, While I'm Waiting, is about to be her second book. So
yes,
exclusive right here, y'all. Yes.
So I have to be back so we can talk about that book as well.
Yes, please. Please come back.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Look, before the break, we're talking about what we want, like the kind of dialogue and conversations we want to come from this book. What are some ways that we can use your book as a catalyst to have these conversations about sharing our story?
As I mentioned, kind of like in the beginning of the interview, it's a universal topic. So one, just kind of the transparency of it. Using it to say, okay, well, this is her story, and my story is similar, or, maybe in some sort of way, parallel to your story or her story, or, whomever is reading the book. And I think that is a good way to just, we all go through this, but are ashamed to admit it. Yep. That was, I think, when I mentioned the ego, I think it was more of the shame, the embarrassment.
Okay.
And so I hope that this book removes some of that and just says, hey, you're not the only person that is going through this or that has gone through this. Yes. And just remember that. Remember that anybody from any income level, any socio status, it happens. Everybody experiences relationship issues, and not necessarily like it's drama, but just, you're with someone who is from a different background and a different upbringing. So those, things are going to clash. But I really hope that people can start to have the conversation, start to, look at, okay, I'm not the only one. And also, as we were mentioning before the break, bringing our daughters into this conversation.
Yes.
Allowing them to express what they've gone through in relationships and explaining to them, okay, well, you're not the only one. And as you were mentioning, I kind of thought about this on the break too as well, talking to my daughters. It's hard having the conversation with them about relationship issues that I had with their dad. So, how do you say, your dad and I argued about this and that, but I kind of try to put it into a light comical sense so that when my older daughter, she may say, oh, my boyfriend, this or that. And I'm like, girl, your daddy's the same thing. So that's just what they do, baby. You don't have to, so, but, making them feel like it's okay to express that to you. And so you're a safe haven for those feelings. Because I think a lot of our young women, they're trying to cope with a lot more than we've had to deal with, with social media, with the terminology side chick, which I hate that word. But baby mama drama, all these terms.
And people writing songs about it, and it's glorified. Like you have TV shows where the side chick is winning, and women are aspiring to that. It's crazy.
Yeah. So we have to really embrace them and be willing to be transparent and have the conversation. So that's another thing that I'm hoping that the book helps to heal, helps to bring transparency, helps to open up that dialogue.
So in terms of opening up the dialogue, have you opened up platforms to take this conversation to maybe an intimate workshop type of setting or group discussion setting? What are some platforms or arenas that you may have created or hope that we create to share?
So those are part of things that I'm rolling out this year. So as you mentioned first, I'm going to work with some new authors and workshops. And then also I've been participating in some panels and, some book signings, like at churches and different events that, have really like women's events. I think those are the main things. So I did a lot of those at the end of last year and starting to pick up again over the summer as, you know, people are kind of thinking about, or, you know, I don't know, the weather is warm, so now everybody's kind of like in a relationship. I don't know.
Seasonal dating.
That reverse. I don't know. Let's have that reverse. I don't know. But really, I do plan on having some workshops, you know, geared around this conversation, because I think we need more of it, more transparency. So those are some of the things that are in the works, definitely.
Yeah. There's a very interesting concept that I've heard in the marketplace. I'm not going to name like any authors or people, but you hear the concept of making room for what you want to receive. In terms of, and it's funny, I've heard it, but I've also personally experienced it. Like, okay, for women, you want a husband, okay. What are you making time in your life so that when a man comes, you are really available to him? Are you there's one particular person I know that wrote about it and talks about in the space where, okay, start to set the table for two. Start to prepare, start to make room in the closet for two. Make room on the other side of the bed. Like, start to really manifest those things. And, you know, much like, and essentially that's what I see. And I thought about that with you, that you're literally, it's the husband. Like, I'm writing these letters as if my husband is here. And these are conversations from my heart that coming into the marriage now, when your future husband does arrive, it's like, I've been praying for you and waiting for you. And so I was manifesting your presence yet while I was waiting on you.
Yes. Yes.
So what are some other things maybe that you touch on in the book that we can do to start to develop the mentality of being ready for the husband or the wife or the spouse that is to come?
I talk about this in the book as well, with the writing. So knowing that even though physically that person is not there, spiritually, you're already married. Spiritually, God has already set it in place. It's just a matter of the time and the place that you actually meet physically. So some of those things that you were suggesting, and I've heard of them before and hadn't really thought of them or given them much thought since, but setting the table for two, or making room in the closet, or, you know, more so making room in your heart for the person that you know is supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Cleaning out that clutter, doing the work, you know, even if you don't do a physical manifestation of it, the spiritual manifestation needs to be there. Have you deleted those numbers to those old boyfriends? Have you said, not today, Satan, to a few of those little text messages?
Yes. Oh, that's good.
You said, I'm good, love, enjoy. Like Future said in his little text message, to some of those people that you know are toxic. A very good girlfriend of mine, Lisa, I love her. She's kind of like, we're each other's checks and balances in relationships. And so I was telling her about an old boyfriend that, you know, seems to creep in every time. It's like he has, you know, antennas.
No radar, yeah.
And her question to me was simply, why isn't he blocked? And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, I mean, you know, you already know what's going to happen with the drama. You know, you've been on this roller coaster too many times not to know where it ends and where to get off. So why are you allowing it to creep back in? And I said, you're absolutely right. So do the work on the front end. That person should not have access to your life anymore if you are truly making room for your future husband. So it's great to lay out the physical part of it, you know, setting the table and, you know, emptying drawers and making space in your closet. But that's almost useless if that person is still calling you.
Wow.
Yeah. If that person is still able to get in touch with you, they need to be blocked, or there needs to be a conversation of, okay, this is it. We don't need to speak anymore because there's nothing here for us. You know, there's nothing left. So I think that is key.
That's profound. What's the point of doing the physical things if the spiritual side of if your heart's not ready to to give and to receive. And really, truthfully, to have that kind of love is not so much about what I'm going to get, what am I going to give? And when both parties come to the table ready to give, what that type of love looks like. Well, Franda, this conversation has been so, I'm what's the word I'm looking for? I'm inspired because oftentimes as women, we have these conversations with our girlfriends in silos, or we don't invite men sometimes to the conversation. So I hope and pray that there are men who are listening that are like, I'm really truly seeking God for my wife. My heart desires my wife. So for men, I know that this is touching for you too. For young men and young women to understand that there's a process in the journey of waiting. There's a reason why the wait is necessary. And so, Franda, talked of this book. Tell them where they can purchase the book.
Okay, yes. So you can purchase the book on Amazon. So it's available in e-format. You can purchase it and upload it on your Kindle or your iPad or your tablet or even on your phone.
Yeah.
Or you can purchase a hard copy. So I will have some more book signing events, and I'll post those on my website, which is thehusbandjournal.com. So if people want to purchase a copy in advance and come meet me and sign it, I'll sign it for you, I'll autograph it for you, you know, whatever you like.
Okay.
And also, I'm having my first new authors event, which is going to be on July 28th. Yes, it's going to be at the Arc, which is off of Phoenix Boulevard, 1631 Phoenix Boulevard, Suite 6. It's going to be from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So this event, I feel like the platform, the help that Patrick gave me, I'm just kind of paying it forward. So I'm sure that new authors will be birthed from there. And I'll say, you know, go visit Melissa. Go do your interview with Melissa. Yes.
Please. And thank you.
Yes. We need more people to talk and be transparent.
Yeah. And I appreciate the supporter in you that from the day we met, I knew your story was one that needed to be told, and that we were able to forge that connection and keep that going. So guys, you got to go out, go to thehusbandjournal.com.
Amazon.
Yes, purchase a couple of books, give some away. They're gifts. Come on, book clubs. Come on, book club.
Yes. That's on the list too, because I'm going to start doing, it's going to be, you know, while I'm waiting, we're going to have the subscription boxes. So it's going to be full of not only just my book, but other books that I've been reading during my healing process. So look out for that too. Yes, on my website. So subscription boxes are coming, something for you to read and do and empower yourself and grow and just not sit there and be depressed or, you know, contemplating, you know, sometimes suicidal thoughts and depression and all those things are very realistic.
Oh my gosh. Oh man, yes.
Yeah.
Running rampant.
So you can pour back into yourself and realize your value. So you don't have to lose yourself in this process.
Amen. Amen. Well, again, I want to just quickly before we go, share with those, if they missed the top of the broadcast, your scripture that you stand on, because again, it so eloquently sums up not only the woman of God that you are, but the message that you share from, again, Habakkuk. So guys, y'all know I share a little word to sum it all up, right? And so again, friend, scripture is Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2-3. Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and engrave it plainly. So again, when God gives you a vision, especially if you're in a journey of waiting, and it may be a book, it may not be a book. Maybe there's another purpose project he has for you to write it and make it plain and get it out. For me, it was my nonprofit. And I just, you know, I so love that he gave me something. So he trusted me with that. For you, it may be a hobby. It may be pursuing your dream. It may be music. It could be just anything he lays on your heart. Chase and run after that thing and write down clearly what God says. And the other part of that scripture says that the one who reads it will run. And I love that because that means that there's such an eloquent, poetic thing about journaling, because it's almost like a covenant with God. Like once you write it down, it's real. And that now we have an agreement to get something done. I love how that plays out. And it gets even better from there. For the vision is yet for the appointed future time. It hurries towards the goal. It will not fail. So whatever you set your hand to in this season while you're waiting, trust God that it will not fail. If your heart desires for marriage, don't pour into the statistics, don't feed into the statistics. Trust that it will, your vision and your desires of your heart that you've put before God, it will not fail. Give it its appointed time, okay? And even though it delays, wait, wait,
Yes.
wait patiently
Yes.
for it, because it will certainly not delay. Franda,
Yes.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Can we do a virtual hug?
I needed that. Oh, it's so amazing. Family, I missed y'all in the studio today. We're going to get Franda back by the 108 Praise Studio, but I will be back in Atlanta, back out in the community and on location soon. I love you all. Again, special thanks to my guest, author Franda Clay. And I will see you all again next week right here on the Activation Hour radio show on 108 Praise Radio, where we're always voicing the gospel. See you later. Bye.